Hey, good morning, guys. Happy Friday. We are going to pick up Genesis 13. We left off last time 12. Abram goes to Egypt because of a famine. He tells Pharaoh that Sarai, his wife, who comes to be Sarah, is his sister. And Pharaoh finds out, and so the Lord comes in and makes everybody sick, and then he says, "Get out of here." After he'd already given Abram all these gold, silver, livestock, and so he says, "Get the heck out of here." So God gets Abram out of that pickle. He goes on his way. He's got his nephew Lot in the same kind of country area, and they're building things up. So we'll start here. Genesis 13. So Abram went up from Egypt to Negev with his wife and everything he had, and Lot went with him. Abram had become very wealthy in livestock and silver and gold. So from the Negev he went up from place to place until he came to Bethel, to the place between Bethel and Ai, where his tent had been earlier, and where he had first built an altar to the Lord. There Abram called upon the name of the Lord. Stop real quick. So that's where we had talked last time. He always builds the altar. He doesn't go to some pagan church or whatever. Like, he makes sure that he goes to where he meets the Lord all the time, no matter if it's the tent or whatever. And Bethel, Beth is house, and El, the man, the one, the God. So it's the house of God. So he's got his altar that where he meets God, and that's house of God to Abram. And so now it says, now Lot, who was moving about with Abram, also had flocks and herds with his tents. Lot is his nephew. But the land could not support them while they stayed together, and their possessions were so great that they were not able to stay together. Quarreling arose between Abram's herders and Lot's. The Canaanites and the Perizzites were also living in the land at that time, so they're just getting so big, they're starting to kind of fight, who's watering at the same time their livestock, who's on what meadow. So Abram said to Lot, let's not have any quarreling between you and me, or between your herders or mine, for we're close relatives. Is not the whole land before you? Let's part company. If you go to the left, I go right. If you go right, I go left. So Lot looked around, and he saw the whole plain of the Jordan toward Zoar was well watered, like the garden of the Lord, like the land of Egypt. So, and this was before Sodom and Gomorrah. So it was just beautiful meadows, water, and lots of grass. So he says, that's it. That's where I'm going to take all my livestock, and I'm going to set up shop. So Lot chose for himself the whole plain of the Jordan and set out towards the east. The two men parted company. Abram lived in the land of Canaan, while Lot lived among the cities of the plain, and pitched his tents. So there's little like cities, in this huge meadow, big valley, right? So there's little cities, and Lot has his stuff outside of it, but he goes in and out of town. Abram's like a little more removed from civilization. Abram lived in the land of Canaan, while Lot lived among the cities of the plain and pitched tents near Sodom. Now the people of Sodom were wicked and were sinning greatly excuse me, against the Lord. The Lord said to Abram after Lot had parted from him, look around from where you are to the north and the south, to the east and the west. All the land that you see I will give to you and your offspring forever. So this is God starting to, foreshadow this covenant that this is going to be for all of Abram's descendants. Mind you, he doesn't even have kids yet, okay? But God keeps promising. Every time he comes to the altar and comes to the Lord, he's just promising, I'm going to cover everything with your descendants. Let's see, look around from the north to south. All the land you see I will give to you and your offspring forever. I will make your offspring like the dust of the earth, so that if anyone could count the dust, then your offspring could be counted. Go walk through the length and breadth of the land, for I am giving it to you. So Abram went to live near the great trees of Mamre at Hebron, where he pitched his tents. There he built an altar to the Lord. See, he builds his altar. Everywhere he goes, he makes sure he's got direct contact with the Lord. So it's not just him. He's got a lot of cattle. He's got herders. He's got people. So he's just moving, kind of free grazing. So he sets up shop. And then along comes, we're going to go into chapter 14 now. At the time when, we're getting into the wars. So at the time when Amraphel was king of Shinar, Arioch king of Elasar, and Kedorlaomer, king of Elam. Kedorlaomer was a bad dude. Like, no one liked him. Elam and Tidal, king of Goyim. These kings, there's 4 kings, went to war against Bera, king of Sodom, Bersha, king of Gomorrah, Shinab, king of Edom, Shamir, king of Zeboim, and the king of Bela, that is Zoar now. All these latter kings joined forces in the valley. So for 12 years, they'd been subject to Kedorlaomer, but in the 13th year, they rebelled. So there's like 4 kings against 5 kings. Middle East, not much has changed, right? So they're still fighting over territory. They're kind of joining up and making alliances. In the 14th year, Kedorlaomer and his kings allied with him out and defeated the Raphites in Ashtaroth. Let's see, the Zuzites and Ham. So they're just kind of going on a killing spree, taking over everything they can, rape and pillaging, taking livestock. Then they turned back and went to En Mishpat, that is in Kadesh, and they conquered the whole territory of the Amalekites, as well as the Amorites who were living there in Hazan Tamar. Then the king of Sodom and the king of Gomorrah, the king of Admon, and the king of Seboim. So the 5 kings, they drew their battle lines against Kedorlaomer, 4 kings, right? Now the valley of Siddim was full of tar pits, and when the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah fled, some of the men fell into the pits, and everyone took off towards the hills. So the 4 kings, Kedorlaomer, the bad dude, seized everything. He starts taking all of this stuff from the 5, because they've really just like kicked a lot of butt now. There's no one to stop them from taking things. But they also carried away Abram's nephew Lot and his possessions, since he was living in Sodom. So he spent a little too much time in town. He got wrapped up in it, and they take everything. So when Abram heard, a man who had escaped came and reported this to Abram the Hebrew. So somebody survives, finds Abram, and now Abram was living near the great trees of Mamre. So he's like on the edge of the forest meadow. And Mamre the Amorite, a brother of Eshcol, and Aner, all who were with him and allied with Abram. So Abram heard of his relative had been taken captive. He called 318 trained men born in his household. So he rallies his guys, all of his warriors, calls his boys. And during the night, Abram divided his men to attack them, and he routed them, pursuing them as far as Hobah, north of Damascus. So he goes after these guys, middle of the night, with all his best guys, finds them, splits mods, and he recovered all the goods and brought back his relative Lot and his possessions together with the women and all the other people. So Abram goes and gets all of them back, and he kills the bad guys. After Abram returned from defeating the king, Kedorlaomer and the kings allied with him, the king of Sodom came out to meet him in the valley of Shaveh. That's the king's valley. Then Melchizedek, which, man, there's a lot of like this Melchizedek king. He's the king of Salem, like Jerusalem. Okay, so Salem, and he's talked about in here as being a priest, which is like before Jesus, but he brings out bread and wine. So it's almost like this Jesus foreshadowing. And there's a lot of like theologians that kind of go back and forth about who he was, how he was anointed, but it was before Aaron. He's not part of any priest bloodline. He was a priest because God said he was a priest. He was anointed. So then Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought out bread and wine. He was a priest of God Most High. So he's a king and he's a priest. And he blessed Abram, saying, "Blessed be Abram by God Most High, creator of heaven and earth, and praise be to God Most High, who delivered your enemies into your hand." So he comes out, he blesses him, tells him thank you. Then Abram gave him 1/10 of everything. So Abram ties to this guy, right? He's a king, he's a priest, but he's just so good, and they connect. So then the king of Sodom said to Abram, "Give me the people and keep the goods for yourself." So these guys are getting back into greedy again. Abram said to the king of Sodom with raised hand, "I have sworn an oath to the Lord, God Most High, creator of heaven and earth, that I will accept nothing belonging to you, not even a thread of the strap of your sandal, so that you will never be able to say, I made Abram rich. I will accept nothing but what my men have eaten and the share that belonged to the men who went with me to Anur, Ashkel, and Mamre. Let them have their share. So he's like, dude, we're not trading. I ain't giving you nothing. You ain't giving me anything. Thank you for feeding us, but we don't owe. There's no favors going on here. He says that to the king of Sodom. So gets Lot back, gets everything back, and now we're going to jump into chapter 15. So the Lord is about to make a covenant with Abram. So after this, the word of the Lord came to Abram in a vision. Do not be afraid, Abram. I am your shield, your very great reward. But Abram said, Sovereign Lord, what can you give me since I remain childless? And the one who will inherit my estate is Eliezer of Damascus. And Abram said, you have given me no children. So a servant in my house will be my heir. So he's like, I have all this stuff, but what am I fighting for? Because I have no one to give it to. It's just going to be a servant. So is it worth continuing to fight? God, what is the plan here? And the word of the Lord came to him. This man will not be your heir, but a son who is your own flesh and blood will be your heir. He took him outside and said, look up at the sky and count the stars. So God always wants you to go out and just connect with him. Sometimes even if you're in your house and you're kind of struggling with something and you're trying to figure it out, it's always good to go outside and just look at the sky, talk to God, and be one with nature, because that's something that God created for all of us. He said, look at the stars. If indeed you can count them, then he said to him, so shall your offspring be. So as many as the stars. And he's right, because Abram was essentially the father of Isaac and Ishmael, the father of Judaism, and then Christianity. Also, Ishmael, who came early, wasn't supposed to be, because we're going to get into it a little bit, was where Islam came from. So you got Christianity, Judaism, Islam, all in that Middle East area. So those were all Abram's descendants. Abram believed the Lord, and he credited it to him as righteousness. He also said to him, I am the Lord who brought you out of the Chaldeans to give you this land and to take possession of it. But Abram said, Sovereign Lord, how can I know that I will gain possession of it? So the Lord said to him, bring me a heifer, a goat, and a ram, each 3 years old, along with a dove and a young pigeon. Abram brought all these to him, cut them in two, and arranged the halves opposite each other. The birds, however, he did not cut in half. Then the birds of prey came down on the carcasses, but Abram drove them away. So now he's made this big sacrifice, and he's trying to communicate with the Lord and find out where he goes, because the Lord's trying to promise him something, but he's really trying to stay connected here. So as the sun was setting, Abram fell into a deep sleep, and a thick and dreadful darkness came over him. Then the Lord said to him, know for certain that for 400 years your descendants will be strangers in a country not their own, and that they will be enslaved and mistreated there. Bummer, right? But 400 years, and it's got to happen, is what he's saying. And God puts us through trials and tests and bad seasons. I mean, he's telling Abram 400 years before your family's healthy, but you got to go through it. But I will punish the nation they serve as slaves, and afterward they will come out with great possessions. You, however, will go to your ancestors in peace and be buried at a good old age. So that's comforting, right? Like your whole bloodline's going to have to go through this, but at the end of your life, you're going to die in peace. In the fourth generation, your descendants will come back here, for the sin of the Amorites has not yet reached its full measure. When the sun had set and the darkness had fallen, a smoking firepot with a blazing torch appeared, and they passed between the pieces. On that day the Lord made a covenant with Abram and said, to your descendants I give this land, from the Wadi of Egypt to the great river Euphrates, the land of the Kenites, the Kenizzites, the Cadmonites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Raphaites, the Amorites, the Canaanites, the Gershites, and the Jebusites. So you get all this land, Middle East, right? Like that is going to be all of Abram's descendants. They are starting the history book here, but it's going to be 400 years of toil. But it's all about what we see here, because we're going to hang it up. It's our faith, from Noah to Abram, to knowing when to go get in the fight, knowing when not to get in the fight, when to make an alliance, when not to. He connected very well with righteousness and priests, and we should try to, if we are in contact with people who are good people like that, faithful, righteous people, we should be drawn to that. Same as Abram was. As soon as King of Sodom shows up, wants to do some trading, no, but he really felt connected to the King of Salem because how righteous he was. He could just feel God coming off of him. I wanted to talk a little cliff note here because it goes from Noah to Abram. We're going to get into Moses and all this, these great characters of the Bible. But their righteousness came from their faith. And to really define faith, faith is going to be, it says faith is confidence in what we hope for and assurance about what we don't see. So it's confidence in what we hope for, just having that faith that everything's going to work out and God's going to make it work for our good. And we are just absolutely positive, even though we can't see it. So we'll hang it up there, and we're going to pick up with next week with Ishmael and Hagar, and as we start to see Abram have kids, and where that goes in the bloodlines. But anyway, good little one on faith here. We had a little war, so that was cool. And we're going to keep on keeping on here in a few days. Love you guys. Have a great weekend. We'll see you.